Well, good morning and welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ. Chip should be joining us shortly. He just finished his retirement board meeting and he's running just a few minutes late. That's why we're also broadcasting late today. Uh, Chip figured he'd be running a little late with his retirement board meeting, so he said to start without him. So I'm starting without him. Isn't that amazing? I don't think it's so nice, but it is what it is. I want to first address the elephant in the room in the Portuguese community. Um, Antonio Teixeira, or Teixeira as some would say, from Fall River, sent the mayor a letter in both English and Portuguese. And he titles it Mayor Hugen, a friend or a foe. There is a good reason the to start the title of this article questioning Mayor Hugen about his decision to deny the Romeros, as well as the Great Feast of the Holy Ghost of New England, the protection usually provided by the police department of Fall River. Both events are important to the Portuguese community, not only of Fall River, but also communities around New England. For more than 30 years, both events, especially the Holy Ghost, have been bringing thousands of people from different parts of the world to Fall River, namely Canada, Bermuda, Azores, and Portugal, and huge numbers of visitors results in thousands of dollars for local businesses that in turn pay thousands of dollars in taxes to our city. During all these years, the city has been very cooperative and provided all the help necessary to keep the feast as safe as possible. After all, it is the duty of the mayor and the police department to protect and serve the residents. It is true that in 2021 and 2022, due to COVID-19, the Great Feast saw a decline in attendance and logically a decline in income for the organization as well as the businesses in the city. But we have surpassed those difficult times and slow but certain recuperating from those bad times. Now that everything is returning to normal, the mayor decided that the feast no longer needs the protection of the police, and he is demanding that the people in charge pay $30,000 if such protection is going to be given to the residents of Fall River. $30,000. If that was not a lack of respect on my part, I would ask, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Is the mayor blackmailing the Portuguese community? What are the reasons for such a poor and stupid decision? The feast for many years has been providing the city not only an income, but also by putting our city on the map on a very positive way. And noticeable is the fact that during all these years, no violence have occurred, and that says a lot about our city and our residents. I have always supported Mayor Coogan and always thought that he is respectful of the Portuguese community, as he should. But his decision to not protect the people attending the Great Feast is an insult to them, and I'm not taking it lightly. Maybe, just maybe, it is time to choose someone who understands our community, someone who comes from within our community. Need I say more? Antonio Teixeira, Fall River. Here's the mayor's response. I know this sounds like a diatribe, and I'm going over this over and over again, but it is what it is. I'll adjust that in a minute, George. Here's the mayor's response to Mr. Teixeira's letter. Mr. Teixeira, allow me to respond to your email dated Sunday, August 25th, 2024, regarding the Great Feast of the Holy Ghost and the Romero's annual procession. First, let me address the Romero's procession that took place on Friday, March 29th, 2024, from Espiritu Santo Church to churches within the community. The permit for this event was approved by the Florida Police Department on February 28th, 2024, and approved by me on March 4th, 2024. There has never been a denial of police protection to this organization. There was a request this year from the Florida Police Department to the organizers to see if they could provide some additional volunteers for this event to assist members of the Florida Police Department during the all-day procession. Secondly, the Great Feast of the Holy Ghost has never been denied police protection by the Florida Police Department or the mayor's office. The total cost to the city for the Great Feast of the Holy Ghost was as follows the last 2 years. In 2022, $69,464.81. and in 2023, $73,850 even. The amounts for 2022, $46,989.50 for police. In 2023, $52,243.77 for police. In 2023, I discussed with the organizers of this and many other events in the city that the cost incurred by the city for such events, and I asked, not as you say demanded, to them to assist with the cost of the details at their events. The Great Feast of the Holy Ghost Committee agreed to pay $30,243.77 of the $52,243.77 cost for the police detail, while the city assumed the remaining cost of $43,606.23 for 2023. Hello, Chip. It's probably in reading the mayor's response.
Oh, okay, good, because I apologize. The meeting ran very late, and my computer, that VPN, blocked me for a little while longer. I figured I'd be a few minutes, but
Yep.
Yeah, the mayor's letter. The mayor is full of crap.
Yep. Well, let me continue. You mentioned in your email questions such as, is the mayor blackmailing the Portuguese community? And what are the reasons for such poor and stupid decision? The first of these comments could not be further from the truth. As mayor, I am trying to ensure events such as these mentioned in your email continue while being mindful of the cost to the taxpayers for these events. I've always supported these events personally and financially and will continue to do so. I will also continue to work with the organizers to see that their events continue to be safe and secure. I participated again this year in the Great Feast of the Holy Ghost processions on Saturday and Sunday, as well as the breakfast, and attended events at Kennedy Park on 2 nights this week. I would have attended the closing dinner, but a special school committee meeting was called for this same evening. I can assure you, Mr. Teixeira, that I have dealt with all organizations of events in the same manner and will continue to do so going forward. Sincerely, Paulie Coogan, Mayor. Now, as I said before, and I say it again, and I will stand by this decision, I believe that the Great Feast of the Holy Ghost should pay 100% of the cost incurred by the city. 100%. And Mrs. Teixeira, I'm sorry, but there is no documentation, none, that the Great Feast has generated any tax dollars for the city, has generated any income for the city, nor has increased tourism. As a matter of fact, a recent survey of participants in the Great Feast showed one family from Canada, none from any other external organizations. All were from the Fall River area. One from out of the area. The Great Feast does not generate the tourist trap that people want it to. It's not a tourist event. It is a religious event, and there is a separation of church and state. And if people cannot get that through their heads, I don't know what the problem is. This country was not founded on the state endorsing a religion. And you're asking the city of Fall River to endorse the Catholic faith. Now, with the mayor getting $30,000, less than half of the cost. Less than half the cost. Still ties the taxpayer on the hook. And Mr. Rodrigues, you're saying a meal tax. A good chunk of the restaurants along South Main Street closed during the Great Feast of the Holy Ghost. A couple that are open, yes, there's some meal tax. But that meal tax is going to be there whether these people come in or not. Because people are eating at those restaurants. And the meal tax that Fall River gets is 0.25%. 0.75%. Less than 1%. That's the problem. People want their cake and they want to eat it too. I firmly believe that every feast in the city, every event in the city, should be paying 100% of the cost for their police coverage and for what the city's providing. The Great Feast of the Holy Ghost pays $150 per electrical drop. They don't pay for electrical usage. They only pay per electrical drop. I wonder how much that's costing the city. And people say that I'm so negative about Fall River. This isn't negative about Fall River. This is being about positive about being for the people of Fall River. The people of Fall River need an advocate. They need an advocate, and I'm going to be that advocate if I have to be. Dick?
Oh, hey, like I said, I came a little late, but you're on the feast, and let me begin at the beginning. Number one, Paul does not treat anybody. That's a lie. He didn't write that. He couldn't write anything that good, or even coherent and germane to whatever the question was. So, number one of his stooges wrote that for him, and he doesn't treat everybody equally. Just look at how he's treating the Flint Association because he doesn't like Carlos Caesar. Look how he treats neighborhood associations and people that he dislikes. That's an outright lie. Paul Coogan only takes care of the people that he likes and who are his supporters. And if you're not one of his supporters, he'll do everything he can to make your life miserable. That's the reality of him. So he's full of crap. And as far as the feast, there is a separation of church and state. I have always been a opponent of subsidizing, and I believe Santa the Desert pays everything.
Yes, they do.
They pay 100% of all the costs of their feast. It is a religious feast, and the problem with that is that there is a separation of church and state, but also that you would have to, if you did that, and we've said that before, even though we don't agree with it, you would then have to subsidize every other feast in the city. If it's a Cambodian Buddhist feast, if it's a Muslim feast, if it's a Episcopalian feast, then we'll have everybody having feasts. So that's fine. And they don't bring anything into Fall River because those are self-contained. The Holy Ghost feast, they have food trucks. The only restaurant that makes anything is the one right alongside of Kennedy Park.
Actually, Cabela's is usually closed.
The businesses actually in Fall River suffer a negative impact during the feast for the most part, as they do with most of these things, the boat races and everything else, because they're down in one little segment of the city. The traffic's a mess. They have food trucks down there. This is all BS. This is all political crap. You should be more concerned about the way Paul handles your tax money and your water bills. And he doesn't care one iota about the cost to the taxpayers. That part of that letter was an absolute fabrication. Absolute fabrication. He doesn't care. Well, it's irrelevant because...
And actually, it doesn't. It doesn't cover it, okay?
Well, whether it does or not, it's irrelevant because we should not be paying, the taxpayers should not be paying a dime.
That's right.
Their problem.
That's right.
If the meal tax doesn't cover all their expenses, that's state money. That's money, that taxpayer money. They should be covering everything from the first penny, okay?
Yeah,
and that's the way I feel about it. And isn't it amazing that people who worry about the government spending money crazy, except when they're giving it to them, then it's fine. Give me the money, it's good. But let's get down to something important, because that's done. And hopefully next year we'll have a new mayor and they'll actually worry about the taxpayer. And they'll tell the feasts, have a nice feast, and you're on your own, because we're not subsidizing it with people's hard-earned money. But
exactly.
Let's talk about...
Well, before you go anywhere, Chip, Mr. Rodriguez said the Holy Ghost feast enriches the city. Enriches the city how? How does it enrich the city?
Okay, I don't get into a dialogue with him. He likes the Holy Ghost feast. Good. There are a lot of people that don't like the feast. There are a lot of people that are pissed off that have to drive 3 blocks out of their way because they shut down all the streets. There are people who don't like Portuguese food. There are people who are not Catholics. There are a lot of people that feast is irrelevant to them. Okay? You like it, that's fine. You have every right to like it. It enriches you and your segment of the population. It does not enrich everybody. That's a generalization that does not work. Okay? Now let's get to some real issues. The mayor of Fall River is a real estate agent. He's a real estate broker. He is spending city money to block the sale of the Davol School because Carlos Caesar had a buyer, and they're going to block that because it leaked at the meeting. Linda leaked it. Oh, we've got a buyer already promised. Since when are we in a real estate business? He's not supposed to be brokering. And who is he brokering to? Are we really in a real estate business? Did he put the Davol School out for bids to see if we could get a competitive bid on it? Maybe sell it to somebody who's not going to ask for TIFs, not going to ask for all kinds of tax breaks, not going to ask for reductions in their assessed value, and still get the thing for virtually nothing. He's got his preferred investors. This is corruption at its highest. The FBI should be investigating this. He meets with Kenny Fiola, either at Barcelo's or New Boston Bakery, and what are they talking about? What's the next property they're going to broker? And they're going to use the city law department to block that sale now. And then they're going to wrap it around, oh, this is supposed to be for veterans, and so was Watuppa Heights. Where's that? Promises again. The reality is the mayor of the city of Fall River should not be involved in real estate transactions with people who probably and most likely contribute to his campaign. Now they're going to block the sale of the Davol School and make this into an issue so they can give it to one of their friends. I can guarantee you that if you look at who's developing the city of Fall River, there's a very narrow bandwidth there.
That's right, there is.
A very narrow bandwidth. But you know what a real mayor would do? Because Paul Coogan has put Fall River up for sale to the people who can do him and his friends the most good. He has not opened Fall River for business. If he was a mayor, he'd say, we're open. We got all these buildings we want to develop. We've got this property. You're going to get them at a reasonable rate because they need rehabbing, and we want to rehabilitate our city. Come in and make an offer and see what we can get for our citizens, and you pay most of the freight. You want to make some money off these properties? Well, don't ask for a TIF. Don't make it a competitive bid. That's the spirit of this capitalistic society. Competition breeds better prices, and it saves taxpayer money. But what does Paul Coogan do? He's a real estate broker. That is illegal, and somebody should call the FBI. Find out how much money they've made. Find out who's bought all these properties. I can guarantee you there's a very tight cabal. And with that, CJ, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, let's get into the Davol School details. Okay, Carlos Caesar received a letter from the city several months ago telling him that he's in violation of his agreement to develop the property into a community center. And as such, the city is using the reverter clause located in the purchase and sales agreement. First and foremost, a purchase and sale agreement ends at the closing of the building, unless it is written into the closing. That's the law. Secondly, Carlos took money out of the Flint Neighborhood Association's bank to pay to remediate the asbestos in the building. And he paid that. And I believe that was $15,000 or $20,000. When the city sent him that letter, which I wish he hadn't waited until he got that letter, because I've been telling him for almost 3 years, you need to sell this building. No, we're going to make it a community center. I said, then start raising money for it. And he's like, well, it's kind of hard to raise money. I said, you don't have a problem putting a bus trip together. You don't have a problem putting a Portuguese trip together. You don't have a problem putting together a trip to Niagara Falls. Put together something to raise the money for the school. That never happened. So the city wants to take it back. Why? Now we find out. They have a buyer for the building. They have a buyer because Linda let it slip. Oh no, that building's already promised. That's for veterans housing. She said that to the architect. Can't hear you, Chip.
Promised. Isn't that nice? Who did they promise it to?
Right.
How many people even knew that building was on the market? I can tell you who was brokering it. Kenny Fiola.
That's right.
I can bet you Kenny Fiola's doing the work on that with Paul Coogan. So he's in business with Kenny. That's why he meets with him all the time. It's been promised. And how much does it cost to get a promise? That's the question I have. I want to know how much it costs in the city of Florida. You remember? I've got a pretty good memory. You remember that debacle on the marijuana business? Remember what that lawyer came in and eviscerated the city?
Right, because he wouldn't give the mayor.
Yeah, because he wouldn't pay to play.
That's right.
They didn't want to pay to play. And that lawyer, just go look it up. It was a YouTube. I don't know, maybe but it was on YouTube, that meeting. He literally annihilated the city's law department.
Yes, he did.
And I mean, it wasn't a peep to be heard from the council. All you heard was crickets. This is the most corrupt administration I have ever seen in my life. I have never seen anything like this. They got the city locked down tight. They do anything they want, and nobody knows about it till after it happens. This was leaked. The only reason we found out about this was we found out Carlos got a letter, and Linda went, "Oh, it's been promised." Oh, really? And what is she doing in it? What is a city councilor? Oh, it's for the veterans. Well, where were you about Latapa Heights? They bulldozed that building. That was supposed to be veterans housing. Where have you been on that one? You pick and choose what you want? The hell with the taxpayers. Paul Coogan says in his letter, I worry about how much it costs the taxpayers. You do in a pig's patootie. You don't give a damn how much it costs. You just keep spending. And this is ridiculous. I mean, this whole thing is just ridiculous. What goes on in this city is just, I got no luck with scratch tickets, and I wish, or Powerball tickets. I just wish I could hit. And I've lived in this city my whole life, but I've never seen anything like this. This city under Coogan has gone the way the United States has gone under Joe Biden. He's mini Joe Biden. He's destroyed this city. And then he wraps it in that bullshit cloak of, we're developing this city. Well, for who? For the people who live in it now that can't afford their rents? For the people who live in it now who can't afford food? The 66% of the people in this country living paycheck to paycheck, who comprise the majority of citizens in Fall River? You sure as hell aren't running the city for them. You're running the city for the people you promise these properties to, who you give these TIFs to, the millionaire developers who you give more money to, while you take more money from people who don't have money. That's what's going on in this city. And if that doesn't infuriate you, let's all show up in November to vote in the presidential election and give them a preview of coming attractions in the next election when all these bozos run for re-election. Because the only way we're ever going to fix it is we got to get rid of the root cause. I know Kamala went down to find the root cause. She never did. They must have buried that root very deeply. But the root cause are the people we elect. They don't represent us. And with that, CJ, back to you.
Well, let me give you a little more details on this sale of the Davol School. Carlos finally, when he got that letter, placed the building on the market. And he got no responses from anyone. He then approached the developer who said, look, I want to make that 10 affordable housing units. Notice the key word there, affordable housing units in the Flint, which is needed because all Paul's building is market rate. He said, but the only way I can do that is to get the building for $60,000. Because otherwise, I'm not going to make any money to pay off the bill, which I can understand. So Carlos said, look, I can't sell it for $60,000. Can you give me 70? And the guy said, yeah, I can do 70. And they entered into a purchase and sale agreement. As soon as they entered into the purchase and sales agreement, the mayor, through Ken Fredette, his corporate counsel, ran to the registry of deeds and filed a lien or a notice on the property that they can't sell it. So now it's up in limbo. Why? Because Paul has somebody who wants it. So as you can tell, Paul is against affordable housing. He's made that perfectly clear over and over again. 10 units of affordable housing, and Paul puts the kibosh on it. But any way you look at it, Carlos has an offer of $70,000 on the building. So if the city wants to take it back, they're going to have to give him at least $70,000. Like it or not, because that's what it's worth.
I just want to know how the city can stop this because they don't own the building.
That's right. They say they have a reverter clause in the purchase and sale.
But they don't, as you said, right. That unless there's language in the they don't have a reverter. They must have just wrote it today and attached it. It wasn't there when they signed it.
That's right.
It was a purchase and sales, which, as you said correctly, unless there's some other language to the contrary, purchase and sales agreements are finished once the purchase is made.
That's right. That's right. And
but he's got to get a lawyer. And again, it's money that they don't have. The Flint Association, and this is what they do. They bully their way through things because they have a law department that we're paying for.
That's right.
To do their job, to fight against us and fight against and every time, look, I've lived in a Flint basically my entire life. And when I first got out of the service, I lived on the periphery of the Flint. I think it's still now considered part of the Flint, but I consider the Flint Stafford Square to Bogle Hill. That's the heart of the Flint to me.
Right.
And I drive by and I see those ridiculous mural crosswalks, painted with Flint. They're propagandizing it. Lipstick on a pig. There's the ornately painted crosswalk in front of 5 consecutive unoccupied buildings that are in disrepair. If that doesn't show how ridiculously disconnected these people are to reality, nothing does. Because you think a crosswalk painted with Flint on it? Flint Village? People are going to move in there. What are they going to do? Live on a crosswalk? I mean, look, this whole thing is bizarre. All these things are covering the look what we're doing. We're doing a little bit of something while they're making all these backroom deals with his banker friends, his lawyer friends, his developer friends. This guy needs to be investigated. They need to investigate these people. There were allegations many years ago about some serious misappropriation of funds by some of these people. They disappeared. But I'll tell you, this is crazy. Yeah, with a luxurious tie agreement, they went into the figure out. So yeah, 6.2 million. Well, you know, Nelson's got those numbers and they're staggering. They're staggering, and this is what you get. Who was it promised to? That one, is that person going to get a tie, a TIF, a reduced assessment on their property?
That guy, according to Nelson, they did get a tie. They got a very luxurious tie. Okay, their property value right now is $2.4 million, although the total value of the property is $6.2 million. So the taxable is 2.4. That's what type of a tie they got.
And he's right. These are a slap in the face to every taxpayer. Yeah, somebody got to call the FBI. You know, he took over from Jaisel. Maybe he needs the same kind of scrutiny. Because I'll tell you something. There's something rotten in the state of Denmark here. When you got a mayor involved in real estate deals, using the city law department to promote their real estate machinations, Houston, we got a problem.
No question about it. There's no question about it. And again, like I said, Carlos was looking out for the people of the Flint. He would not sell the property unless he will not forget. I mean, he would not sell the property unless there was for affordable housing. He didn't want more market rate housing. Carlos was thinking about the people. And Mr. Roderick, this was your first question. What are my thoughts on banning investors from buying homes and renting them out to Airbnbs? All an Airbnb is a short-term rental. The people that are against them are the people in the Highlands, the powers that be. They don't want their properties, like the mansion that they're talking about, to be used for rental short-term. Hey, those are tourists. I thought we were going to be a tourist city. Tourists need to stay somewhere. They can't stay at the Fall River Hotel because it's barely occupable. You can't even get into it. Illegals. They don't want to stay in Westport. They don't want to stay in Somerset. They don't want to stay in Swansea. They want to be in Fall River.
Listen, let me tell you something about that Airbnb. We've got a dramatic housing problem in Fall River. That is, the people who live here can't afford the housing.
That's right.
We got plenty of housing in Fall River. And the thing is, you look, I believe in this. I don't believe in socialism. I believe in capitalism. The thing is, if we had affordable rents, there wouldn't be anybody selling property to have a Airbnb. The fact is that it's better to have something occupied and paying taxes than being unoccupied and derelict. But I think that the market will see what it bears. I mean, look at We have these facilities everywhere in the world. You go to Colorado to the ski areas and stuff like that. It's all about zoning. You know, I remember the big fiasco, and you remember it, CJ, about the strip joint. Remember that when they were going
Yes, I do.
the strip zone,
All
and
the marriage.
everybody was going crazy about, you know, listen, it's a business. It'll pay taxes. It'll bring people in. You stick it in a zone where this is why you have zoning laws. This is why you have the ability to control your environment, unless the MBTA gets the land, and then they can do anything they want with it because they don't have to comply with anything. This is the problem with the MBTA. They have it all over the state. They get in these rich towns that don't want this. Like you said, rich people, it's like Martha's Vineyard. They were okay with illegals until they got them. And then they lasted less than 24 hours. They were gone. Not in my backyard. Well, you can zone things in Fall River. I mean, if we actually had administrations that cared about the residents of Fall River now, the people who live here now, not the people they hope are going to come here or want to come here. I know Paulie wanders around the parking lots looking for out-of-state plates so they can make them get Massachusetts plates, or just to say, oh, see, we're attracting people. Half of those people are working on the MBTA and stuff like that. But the thing is that, you know, we should have control of our community. Those are businesses. We should be trying to entice businesses. It's a type of business. Like I said, short-term rentals, they're prevalent all over. But the problem with that is, would they really last in Fall River? My personal opinion, and it's only mine, they won't. Because right now we haven't developed Fall River enough to have people want to come here on a short term. If you're going to tell me you're going to go to Aspen, Colorado to ski, you might rent one of those short-term rentals. If you want to go somewhere, if you want to go out to California and be near, on Highway 1 on the Pacific Coast, you might be able, there's a lot of them out there, you can have short-term rentals. But it's about having control of your city. But see, that gets down to our basic point. We haven't had control of this city in decades. The same people have been running this city for the last 30 or 40 years. Look at the names.
And they're running it into the ground.
And they've run it into the ground. They've done nothing for the regular people. They've all they were rich to begin with, and they've gotten richer. And what have they done? They don't care about, you can't afford your rent? Tough luck.
As long as they keep lining their pockets, they're happy.
They keep building more market rate housing and hoping people will come but this is the whole problem. We got to take back this country and this city. We've got to put people in office who are going to look at these things and say, let's let the residents weigh in. I'm not saying everything that we want is what the people want, but like George was talking about the feast, some people like it, some people don't. But we have ideas. You want those Airbnbs, fine. Let's have a discussion about it. Let's have a public hearing. Let's see. Let's talk about how are we going to do this? Are we going to have a zone for that area? There's going to be certain zone areas. Are there going to be things like that? All these ideas that are going to help the people who live here now, not these fictitious people that live in that alternate universe that they live in, or the rich North End where they can go, oh, we don't care about the peons. We don't want this. Well, look what happened when they were going to close a couple of North End schools. They went crazy. They rise up. It's like, not in my backyard. Try to build something. Try to build something in Pelosi's backyard and see how quickly she all of a sudden becomes a conservative. And this is the problem. We got a mayor who has now become a pseudo rich guy. So now he's rubbing elbows with all the rich and nauseous, and they don't care about the city. They've never cared about the city. Look at the names. Nelson has a whole list of properties of people with very, very familiar names who now are paying some less than half, far less than half of the assessed value they had 4 years ago. You explain that to me. Is your house worth less than half of what it was 4 years ago? Hell no. Mine isn't. My taxes keep going up through the roof. Yet, the richest people in this community, the richest developers, their properties are mysteriously devalued.
Don't we remember a city official who had their property devalued? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Wasn't she a city administrator?
Yes, she was.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that. Right in the middle of an entire neighborhood. Everybody paid more taxes than her.
That's right.
And it was in a very nice neighborhood overlooking the water.
That's right.
A water view property.
That's
which
right.
is always more pricey. But remember, this is what you have. This is what you have in this city.
Yeah. Well, George asked a question about who the buyer is for Paul. Paul and Kenny, or Paul and whoever, Linda, Paul and whoever, have kept the potential buyer quiet. It's not on papers anywhere. There's nothing. It's a promise between two people. Okay? And if Paul gets a hold of that school, that's where it's going. Okay? Carlos has a use for the building. Carlos was even promised that the food bank, which runs out of that school, which feeds the poor, the seniors, and the disabled, he was even promised that he could run the food bank out of the basement of that building.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, George. Yeah, fat chance of that one, baby.
Right.
They'll last less time there than they did in Martha's Vineyard. Are you kidding me? They'll get a bulldozer out, bulldoze them right down back into the rest of the city. Nobody's going there. Not in this lifetime. Yeah, that's one of the big ones.
That's one of the big ones.
He's a fairly recent addition.
Tony Cadero's not recent, but
I'm talking about the historical guys that preceded him, but he has been around for quite a while now. You're right, and he's made an awful lot of money, and he's got remember when they put all the regular city streets on hold so he could get Davol Street paved because he bought something on Davol Street? Isn't it nice to know? Isn't it nice to know that you have that much power? That you buy a property, you don't have to worry about your street being crappy. They're gonna be down there the next day digging it up and repaving it for you. And they put everything on hold. Yeah. No, look he made his money, and look, he made it. You can't blame him. He's a businessman. No, I don't blame him.
He's a capitalist. That's it.
I know him well.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is that it's up to our government to control this. It's not supposed to be a very, very select few. The way you keep prices down for the people is competition. Tony Cadero would still be a very wealthy man. He's got a good business head. But if he would have had to compete for bids on a lot of these buildings, he wouldn't be quite as rich.
That's right.
But we would have saved a lot more money in Fall River. And that applies for everybody like him. The TIFs, the ties, all the stuff that comes out of our pocket that we pay. This is the way business is being done. Like you said, who's the name? You can't get anything out of Coogan. We still don't know what happened, the specifics of what happened with Malone. We don't know what happened with anybody. The head of security that was on paid leave for a year. We don't know everything that's happened, and there's been a lot of things that have happened. in Fall River. Paul Coogan, the man who ran on, I'm going to abide by the law and be transparent, has been the worst mayor in history. There's no transparency. You get nothing from him. My suggestion is, if you want to know what's going on, go to Barcelo's or the New Boston Road Bakery and camp yourself out there and hope you get a day that he's meeting with Kenny and see if you can eavesdrop. If you got really good hair, and you might know, then you can call us and let us know.
Exactly. Well, this has been a great show. I'll tell you right now. Who pays Fiola? Ken Fiola now works for himself. He's also a consultant, I believe, to the Redevelopment Authority, where he gets $400,000. Until he came back to the city under Jazel Correa, when Jazel got rid of him, he was just about bankrupt. He was going to lose the old Cherry and Webb building because he was in default. Jazel's out of office. Paul comes in, and all of a sudden, all taken care of. Tell me that's not dirty politics.
Well, not only that, he conveniently became dependent. So, remember when somebody asked him how much money he was making? His first response was, "I don't have to tell you."
That's right.
Because now I'm a private entity.
That's right.
So they're ducking that. But I would conservatively say that his salary is, I'm making a guess. I may be wrong, but I'm making a guess. I bet you it's in excess of $300,000 a year. That's not counting all the commissions he makes on these brokerage deals. I would conservatively say that he's probably making somewhere in the vicinity of close to $1 million a year, easily.
And remember, he gets fees for serving as the representative. He is a lawyer, and serving as the representative to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which, to stop the bed and breakfast, they said the Zoning Board of Appeals can only grant a variance for topography, soil, and size. They use it when they want to. That's the law. They can't grant the variance because there's no parking. They can't grant the variance because they want to make it something else. It says topography. Yet the Zoning Board of Appeals violates that law every chance they get. Every chance they get. They use it when they want to. They use it when they don't. This is how corrupt your city is. And I know somebody that was put on the ZBA as an alternate, sat there and was told, you will never get a vote because you won't vote with us. You won't do what you're told. Does that sound familiar, Chip? You won't do what you're told.
That's the way they operate. And as I said, all you guys that weigh in all the time, we like it. You're paying attention to what happens, but it's the 40,000 people that don't participate that we've got to get to. George, you're right. The 40,000 people that we don't get to. Why? I can't explain it. Maybe you guys can give me some help on this. Why would you watch this city disintegrate and let this guy get elected by 14,000 people showing up at the polls? How can you have a city being run by 14,000 people? It's almost 95,000 people. You got 55,000 registered voters. And it's like 14,000 people are running this community and they're running it into the ground. Don't you understand that there's strength in numbers? United we stand, divided we will fall. We're fallen. We've crumbled. We've got to get these people to the polls again. They got this feeling of there's nothing we can do. Well, there is if we all show up. We proved that with the recall. A lot of people weren't happy with the recall. They thought that we didn't have a snowball's chance in hell. They thought the Bruins were going to be playing a Stanley Cup game in hell before we got that thing, but we did it. And why? We had a bigger turnout than all Paul's elections.
That's right. That's right. And that's what it takes. It takes the people to come out and vote. And that's all it will take. And for a significant change to occur in Fall River, they have to vote out every elected official. Every one of them. Maybe not Michelle, maybe not Colin.
I gotta disagree. You can't vote out Michelle.
That's what I just said. Maybe not Michelle, maybe not Colin.
She has been an advocate. She is the lone. She is the
lone voice of the
like
people.
Joan of Arc of the city of Fall River.
The lone voice of the people.
Because she's the lone voice in the wilderness that we have for a government.
Yep. That's for sure. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. It's been a great show. Once again, keep listening. Send us your tips. We're always here. And we'll see you on Friday. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Because if you don't, no one will. Have a great day.